Alright, so on this video here, please make sure and disconnect your battery before you do the radiator swap. And the other thing is, just letting you know up front that AutoZone, a lot of their parts are not OEM. Maybe other places are, but the radiator that I got through AutoZone is not direct spec compatible. In other words, it's actually larger. It's a little bit different design than the original Toyota radiator. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to show you how to modify it and how to make it work. And I got it in my car, and it's working good. And I took it for a long drive and no issues. So here you go. All right, so this is a 2010 Toyota Corolla base model. It's a 2.4 liter. I'm replacing the radiator. I'm swapping out the radiator. This thing is 14 years old, and the plastic on this radiator will get brittle. And long story short, I had this port here, overflow port off of the neck of the radiator break, and I had to just kind of JB weld another one on here, and it's not holding up. It lasted like a summer, and it's making a mess. It's dripping again from somewhere. So I got the new radiator. So you want to replace the radiator? Okay, it doesn't look too bad, but first things first is you gotta put your arm down in here by the battery. See the battery? And you go down beneath that radiator hose. There's a little drain on the radiator. It's a little petcock. You gotta unscrew, okay? And then all the radiator fluid will drain out. Put a pan underneath there on the ground. Drain all that radiator fluid out. Then it's a matter of disconnecting the hose here, on the other side, and you got some hoses here too. But these ones we need to mark so we don't make sure we connect them the right way with the new radiator. And then you got a mounting bracket here and here that we need to loosen as well before we can pull the sucker out. Okay, it's still draining, but right now I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. I'm going to start here. Disconnect this overflow hose. I'm going to tighten this clamp here. I'm going to remove this bracket right here that kind of holds the hose down in there. And it holds these lines too. So, but I'm going to do that. And then over here, loosen the overflow hose where it connects to here. Okay, this is like a little plastic connector for your hoses here. And then I'll go ahead and disconnect this hose, and I might not worry about taking off the hose from the engine just yet. I might just disconnect it right here in the middle. I just want to get this radiator out first, so that's where I'm going to start. Okay, you might need some slip joint pliers to grab this and be able to get this off, you know, and twist and pull. It's just not coming off. But now this special little connector, this plastic connector, the overflow has like a little port for the overflow hose to connect to as well. I've broken this before, and if you break it, you're gonna have to go find one, because your radiator is not gonna work right. You're gonna be spewing radiator fluid right out of this port, and it's not coming loose. It's freaking hard as a rock, which is weird because like 3 years ago I replaced this hose. It's already hard. So what I might do is, damn. I don't know, but when I figure it out, I'll let you know. Okay, meanwhile, this little bracket needs to get loose here. This is a 10 millimeter, okay? 10 millimeter. We'll get this loose, all right? And then these brackets here, these are going to be a 12, all right? 12 millimeter. Okay, so I use slip joint pliers, and I grabbed the hose back, you know, past the plastic of the port there, right? Right past this part here, and kind of twisted and pulled gently, putting pressure, and it finally
it finally came loose. Now this one was even harder, and I haven't got it off yet. But the first step you want to do is you want to grab it here, because it's probably going to be stuck on there and seized. Grab it lightly here and just work it gently until you can get it to go back and forth. Okay, and then you're going to grab it past the port, so that's going to be right around past that bulge. See the end, that bulge there is the end of the plastic nipple there that the hose goes over. You don't want to pinch that. You want to be back over here somewhere. Oh, sorry about the camera here. And then same thing, you're going to want to gently pull towards you and work it back and forth and try to get it off that way without breaking this. Alright, so what I did was, like I said, I got this off first. It was really hard to pull off there. But anyways, and then I disconnected that bracket like I told you. And this hose kind of tucks in underneath the bracket into the little plastic clips here on either side. So anyways, you want to get this free. Get that hose free from the radiator over here. Sorry. Like that. Okay. And now we're connected down here. But now that I got the hose free, it seems like it's just really easy to work it with my hand now, and it's wanting to come off. See? Slowly coming off that port. But I can't do it with one hand and holding the phone, so I'll get back to you. Alright, I got this top overflow hose free. And there you can see, here's the plastic port for that overflow hose that goes into this. It's a formed piece of plastic, like a connector, to connect this hose and this hose. When your car gets old from the heat, these plastic connectors go real quick, and what will happen is you'll barely start moving on this part here with this hose, and this will just snap right off. And like I said, you're screwed. You got to get one of these plastic elbow connectors here, female to female. Or I guess it would be male to male, because it does stick inside the hose on either side, so it would be male to male. And I don't know of the sizing on this, but I will, when I get it apart, I will measure it so that you'll be able to find that at AutoZone or wherever. I ended up getting the new radiator and the hoses at AutoZone just because it was convenient for me at the time. And so anyways, it's about like $300. Oh yeah, and of course you have your fan, your electric fan, so you're going to have to disconnect this plug. I believe it's a push in, where you got to push in and pull, and it'll come loose, okay? Because that needs to be loose so you can pull that radiator out as well. All right, so now that I got that off, oh, here's some tools you might need, by the way. You know, some pliers. I have vice grips, but they don't have to be vice grips. These long slip joint pliers come in really handy. They're about, I don't know, 10, 12 inches long. Then I have some needle nose pliers, and I like to have a little magnetic tray to keep all my little parts I'm taking off here. Keep them all together. I don't lose anything. And, oh yeah, slip joint. Get some small slip joints. These are really good for pulling hoses off, especially those smaller hoses. I think that's going to be it as far as the tools you're going to need. And just some patience. Oh, I am going to mark these hoses here, okay? It's very important, very crucial. You want to mark, mark the routing of these hoses. You don't want to cross these the other way when you put it back together with the new radiator. So I'll show you how I do that. But I'm going to get some regular blue painter's tape, and I'm going to just mark one side blue on the rubber and blue over here on the metal part. That way I don't put this one over here. Okay. Okay. These big metal, these are called compression clamps, okay? And you see how it looks here? How it has like a deal here and a deal here, looks like a little bracket. Well, you're gonna grab either side of these prongs with a pair of slip joint pliers that I showed you, the small slip joint pliers, and you're gonna squeeze in and then work it back and forth and try to push it downward as you're squeezing those clamps all the way in, and it'll push this down far enough where you can get, get this off of the port here. And I'm starting here because it's just easy to get to versus way down in here, way down in there. See, down here, there's another one down there where it connects. I'm just going to disconnect right here on this side for now. Then I just worked it back and forth and pulled, and it came apart. See, it came off. Here's that plastic elbow, but here's that compression clamp I was showing you. And I believe if you can go far enough in, you can actually lock it open, where you can totally easily slide it back. I just wasn't able to do that on the button that first one I did. So, but so anyway, so like I said, I can't show you here. I'm holding the phone with one hand, but you're gonna come on either side. I might need probably need the bigger ones here for this one. Open this up, open it up where it can go wide enough to grab. Sorry. Either side. See? Yeah, if you go far enough, you could lock it open. But I'm not really concerned about that. I'm just going to hold it with one hand, push it in far enough, and wiggle this out, so I can measure that for you and show you the ID of this plastic piece, so you can find that on AutoZone. Because I do recommend replacing this. It's plastic, so every 4-5 years you're going to want to replace that. You don't want to wait 10 years, 12 years like I did, and have this thing break when you start putting your arm down here working on stuff. That'll just break right off. Anyways, okay, here's a plastic connector for your hose there on the right hand side of the motor, right over here. Both sides are the same opening on both sides, that male to male. And see here, so on the inside I got like 1 1/8. Then if you go to the outside, it's like 1 1/4. Okay, so 1 1/8 on the inside and 1 1/4 on the outside. They're probably going to want to know the outside, which is going to be 1 1/4. So let them know that you need the connector, a plastic connector with 1 1/4. I'm just going to reuse this one because I just changed it out like 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not, it's still serviceable. It's still good. So I'm going to leave this on to the motor. Okay, for now. I'm just going to leave it there connected. I just want to be able to get this radiator out. I could probably even leave, I think I will, it'd be easier just to leave this hose connected down here to the bottom of the radiator. It'll still come out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this hose here, and I'm going to mark it, blue tape on either side, so that way I know what's what. When I go to connect the other one to put back in the car. And so now I gotta go over here, and I'm gonna disconnect this overflow hose here that goes to your reservoir. Okay, and the lower hose, radiator hose there, I got to disconnect it. So I might try to go off the engine. Might be, yeah, that would be easier, I think, for me just to disconnect it here from the engine and pull it loose instead of trying to get underneath here. It's really tight down in there for my arm to get down in there. All right, I'm having a hard time with this other hose here on the left side of the car here. I just can't get my arm down in there without fighting hoses and this crap right here digging into my arm. This is the wiring for your alternator. There's a plastic cover that pops on over this. All you gotta do is just use something behind it and push this way, and it'll just pop off because it has like a little sliding clip there. Okay. And so disconnect here. There's a plug here. You got to push in on the side. At the same time, you got to wiggle it back towards you, and it should come out. And then down here, you have another bolt, like a bracket that holds it to the alternator. So these look like 10 millimeter. I might need an open end, just an open end basic wrench to get down, to get this. I don't think I can get a socket over here. It's just kind of wedged up against this little piece here. I think it's going to block the socket from even going on. Anyway, let me get that disconnected. Okay, I kind of had a duh moment, but yeah, there's power connected at all times to this alternator. So you need, warning, you need to disconnect the battery cables. Maybe the negative or just the positive would work, but I went ahead and just did both. You know, it's not too hard to loosen them, take them off with a 10 millimeter open end wrench I was talking about right here. And so now you won't have power over here when you're working on it. I just arced it, scared the crap out of me. All right, so make sure you, if you're going to disconnect this wiring here, like I am, to get down to this hose, it's just a tight spot. You need to disconnect the battery. Please do that. Okay, so this plastic connector here was on freaking tight, but if you just pinch it right here with your thumb on the right side of it, and you wiggle and you pull back towards you, it will come loose. Okay, here's that little deal. You gotta pinch this right here. See, it flexes up and down. Okay, because that will lock onto that little blue block there. So that's why you need to press down and then wiggle and pull back, and it'll come off. So now I got one left down here, that 10 millimeter bracket there. All right, I could not get that lower hose loose from this angle from on top. Now, it'd be much easier to go from the bottom, but I didn't put the car in ramps before I started this job, so maybe that might be a better option. However, I did disconnect it. It's a lot easier to me to disconnect it from the thermostat housing, this plastic thermostat housing, and I disconnected it here. I got some. I found some of these in my garage, and they're needle nose vice grips, and I was able to get the metal compression clamp loosened with these. Pulled it back. See how I pulled it back all the way back to here. Then I got my extended long slip joint pliers. Okay, and I opened them up. They weren't like that. They were much wider, and I was able to just barely get some pressure on that hose and just work it. Once I got the clamp, that compression clamp back, I worked the hose back and forth and broke it loose. And then it just put my hand down in there and pulled on the hose, and it came off. Okay, so now we got that done. But you still need to take this alternator wiring out of your way if you're going to do it from right here. Okay, just so you know, I don't want you damaging any of your cables. So now oh yeah, this fan should be a push connector here. Push that in and push that way, come loose, and then I could take the radiator mounting brackets loose right here. Then it should come out. I don't know. I mean, there is some AC lines that attach to the condenser. I don't know if the condenser is bolted to the radiator. If it is, I'm gonna have to take those loose. So we'll see what happens. Okay, this was a bitch. Probably because it's just old. Been on here for freaking 15 years. But I kind of broke the plastic pushing down. It's so old and brittle, and just from the heat, I guess. They just kind of wear out, but it's still good. Anyways, I was able to get it loose. But there's also a clip that clips into the radiator here. You're gonna have to wedge a flathead screwdriver underneath this and kind of pry and push that way, and it'll come loose. Okay, you got to get that loose. Just tuck it out of the way for now. like that. Okay, now this other plug here, I don't think we need to remove that. We could do that later once we pull the radiator out, because we'll have to take this fan off the old radiator and bolt it to the new radiator. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if I told you or not, but I did disconnect this hose here to get it out of my way. But over here, I need to clean this up a little and put some tape on one of these. Mark the rubber and mark the metal part back here. That way you know where to connect it on the new one. Alright, so after cleaning this up with a wet wipe, so I could put some tape on, I noticed they already have it marked. See that? With a blue paint. So yeah, you definitely want to mark. It doesn't matter. You want to mark either one, but I'm going to mark this one that's closest to me. I'm going to put some blue tape anyways on the rubber here and over here. Okay, so you don't have to disconnect your AC condenser, which it is kind of attached to the radiator. But what you do is, there's this plastic piece on top of the radiator, and there's two bolts. One here, 10 millimeter, and one here, 10 millimeter. And then this will pop up, and then you could pop, see that right here? That's your condenser. You could pop it loose from the radiator. So now we could leave the condenser in the car and just take the radiator out. That's what we want. We don't want to evacuate our AC lines. Heck no. And it's never that easy, but you got these two clips here and here. You got a wedge of flathead screwdriver, and you pull up as you wiggle down in there, and it comes loose. Okay, so now this whole thing will come off. Ta-da! There we go. Now see, here's your fan. Here's your radiator, right here. That's your fan, and that's your AC condenser. Okay, so we want to leave the condenser in there. Let's see if I can pull this out now. I should be able to, even with that hose is still connected to the radiator. See, I still left the hoses on the radiator, but I should be able to work them up through there. It's just easier for me to do it like that instead of trying to take it apart. It's just so tight in there. Again, it's never that easy, but you got to go underneath the car, and the radiator kind of sits down in these brackets at the bottom of the radiator, and you got to kind of work those out on both sides over here too, and then it should come out to the top. I'm hoping. Alright, so that didn't work, so I put it back down in those holes, the radiator anyways, and then I was able to work one side of the condenser, see, out of where it's connected to the radiator, but this left side is just kind of stuck down there. So I don't know. I'm gonna take a look at it. I'll get back to you. All right, so this is the pain in the ass part of the job here. There's this bracketing guard for the condenser up underneath the car, and it kind of locks the AC lines in here and down and over here, and you can't really move it up and down until you take that out. And it's got like these little clips that just kind of clip in. You just got to pull that way, and they'll come loose. There's 3 of them. One of them broke on mine, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Anyways, so what's what it looks like underneath. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but see now my condenser's free from the radiator, so now I can pull the radiator out without damaging those AC lines. Right there on the bottom and right above it, you see how they're bolted into the condenser there? That's the AC lines. And there's your other little tit, what do you want to call it? See it right there? See how I got it out of that little spot, that little hole there? Just kind of keeps it, you know, resting there when you're driving down the road, you know, so it doesn't rattle around too much and put stress on those AC lines there. But yeah, so now this whole condenser is free from the radiator, so now I'm hoping I'll be able to get the radiator out. Alright, so there's a little bracket underneath the bottom of the car there. you have to remove this bracket. It'll pull out. You just got to work it loose with your hand. Don't use a tool. Don't use a screwdriver or anything. I know you're gonna be tempted to, but if you damage that condenser coil, you're gonna have a leak in your AC system, and you'll have no AC. So this thing, see if I could show you here. Yeah, it's at the bottom of the radiator. It's part of the radiator. But if you want to lift the radiator out, this is gonna hit the condenser and try to take the condenser out with it, and you can't because there's AC lines connected to the condenser, so you won't be able to remove it. You'll end up damaging, trying to rip it out, you know. So you got this thing that goes down in here. You just got to wiggle it and work it, and it comes out. It just comes out, okay? Slides in there, locks in. But take that out of your way. All right, so that worked taking that bracket off. However, on the right side now, you got the battery right over top of this hose, and you don't have enough wiggle room to maneuver it that way enough to pull it up. So I'll have to take that hose off on this right side here. Got to take that hose off to pull this thing out. All right, the radiator's out. This stupid little plastic bracket, basically when your little stand for your hood prop little deal, that will come down and it'll lock into here. Then you shut the hood. Well, I try to work it loose with a flathead screwdriver, but it's just so old it just freaking broke. So it doesn't lock in no more. So I'm probably gonna have to just glue it in there. I use some kind of real strong glue, or maybe even JB Weld. Just kind of glue it in there. Once I get done putting the new radiator in and everything like that, this will be the last deal I'll probably do. Because what it was doing was it was kind of scraping along the back side of the radiator grill, and I don't know. It would probably damage the when you go to put in the new radiator, it would probably damage the fins on the new radiator, so you don't want to do that. I would remove it. I don't know. Maybe I should have went from the bottom and pinched it and then worked it up. It's probably what I should have done. I'm not sure. I think so. I think you have to go underneath the bottom here and pinch something together, and then it should come out. And I just kind of was doing the opposite. I was prying from underneath here and didn't release the little hooks on the bottom side, and they just broke right off real easy. So there we go. Let's see, my condenser's still in here. We're gonna put that onto the new radiator. Here's the old radiator with the fan. Now I'm gonna have to disconnect this module and the fan housing and mount this fan to the new radiator. It looks like it just kind of clips in down here, maybe. Maybe that's what this does. Looks like there's some bolts here. I just turned it upside down. This is the bottom part. These are like the little rubber things that secure in there so it doesn't jiggle around too much and you're driving down the road with it. But I think I got to disconnect. I got to get a 10 millimeter, maybe it looks like, and remove that, and probably one over here too. Yep. So these two, and it should come loose from the old radiator there. And what I'll probably do is I'm gonna try with the new hoses to freaking put them on first. And then work them down in there. It's just easier for me to mount it without having to get my hands down there with the pinch those freaking compression clamps. It's kind of hard. All right, I might have to use some Vaseline too, a little bit on the inside of the new rubber hoses I got, so they'll go on the those ports easier. But I don't know if you could see what happened was I had broke one of these off here because they're just so old and brittle, and so I found one at, like, I don't know, Napa or somewhere, and I just freaking used plastic JB Weld and JB welded it back on, and it got me by for like a summer, but then it just started leaking, so I figured it's time for a new radiator. Oh, it looks like there is more. Oh, that's for that. Okay, I might be able to just take this whole thing off just by those two. I think so. I think it's just those two bolts there. Bam, bam. Okay. All right, so here's my old radiator. I still have the fan on there and the other hose there. Took the other hose off. Just kind of keep in mind the orientation of the hose. So like this one, it was like that. Okay. So that's how they look. Okay, if you're looking at it from behind, I should say, behind the radiator, that's how it's gonna look. Okay, as far as the way these are angled, all right, just like that, boom and boom, and you're just gonna take those hoses off, make the same orientation over here in the new one. By the way, the new one does not come with the radiator cap, so I need to reuse my radiator cap, which is, it's new. I just got it like a couple months ago, so I need to take that radiator cap off and put it on this one, obviously. And then right here we need to attach this hose here. So we need to take it loose right here, this hose. Move that little compression clamp back and work it off, and you're going to work that on to this one here once you pull this little protective cap off, obviously. Okay, take off all your packaging. Here's your petcock. They gave you a brand new petcock, which you're going to use. That's where you drain it out from, drain the fluid from, like I showed you in the beginning of the video. So let me get this fan off and get it attached to the new radiator. All right, so you take those two bolts on the bottom of the radiator on on either side. It's a 10 millimeter, and then this whole thing, fan and everything, comes off the old radiator. See, bam. Now we can attach this on the new one. All right, so we got another problem. It's not an OEM design. It doesn't just fit up like it's supposed to. I'm at the bottom of the radiator here. You see this fan? It has those clips. Well, that's good for the old radiator. It works great with the OEM radiator, but not with this aftermarket from AutoZone. So those plastic little tabs here, there's like 3 of them. You see how it's making a gap? And I can't get, it's not gonna sit right. So, and you can't get the bolt to screw in and lock into that nut there. So, yep, to get me a Dremel or a grinder and cut those little plastic, there's like 3 of them around this thing. Got to cut them flush with this surface right here, so it'll close that gap and sit flush against here, to where I could put the bolt down in there and lock it in real good. And anyway, pain in the ass. All right, so it's the next day. I kind of just put things aside for yesterday. It was getting close to getting dark. I didn't want to do it, but I started to freak out at first because I wasn't seeing the hardware that you gotta utilize to make the radiator work here. And there's these on this new radiator. It has a different setup. Okay, so over here on the old radiator, you have, this is from Toyota. They got these recessed freaking little washer there for your bolt, and they're like glued in there or something. They're stuck in there. But anyways, so the new one from AutoZone is totally different. Okay, and so you can't use that washer that's inside of here, but they give you, and I didn't see it at first, I was kind of freaking out, but they give you the hardware bag, and it's kind of rubber band onto the new radiator, which I didn't see it at first, but anyways, it's a square nut. Okay, and these are 6mm by 1.0 threads per inch. So I'm gonna demonstrate to you how it. You gotta have these though, okay? Since they're square and they're metric and they're fine thread, they might be hard to find at a hardware store. I don't know. So yeah, so don't lose the hardware. And when you pick up your radiator, if you do get it at AutoZone, make sure that the hardware and the baggie is rubber banded onto the new radiator. Make sure you verify that before you walk out of the store. I didn't do that. I didn't know. So these kind of just drop in, these square little deals. They just drop right in here. See if I could do this. Bam. It's not the best, it's not the best setup I've seen, but that's how it has to be for this thing. So, and then you're going to reuse the bolts that's, the old bolts. You're going to reuse those and just screw them right in now, see? And it'll hold it. Okay, now for the next part, you got to do some modifications. Let me show you here. So the Toyota radiator is a lot thinner. You could see that, right? The radiator itself is thinner, and the plastic is way thinner. Look how thick this is here. See that compared to this? So there's these little plastic, like a locator little tabs. That's going to prevent you from getting it flush when you go to tighten it, okay? So you're going to have to grind those off. And there's one on each side on the bottom of the fan there, okay? So you got them over here, and then you got them over here. So I just get a Dremel. Let's see if I can show you. It's plastic, so it doesn't take much to gnaw it off. I'm just going to gnaw it flush. Bam. Got one gnawed off, and now I got to do that one, and then the other one's down there, okay? And then it'll turn this off. Now it'll mount up flush and tight and secure. Okay, so it's still not sitting flush, and the bolt's not long enough to thread into the nut there, because there's that gap. Because this radiator is a lot wider than the stock one from Toyota, so it's bullshit. But this is not. This is quite common when you're going aftermarket. They say it's direct fit, and it's bullshit. Okay, it rarely ever is. Okay, now I'm gonna use my Dremel, and I'm gonna gnaw into this little area here so I could get that to fit down in there. Let's see if that'll work. Okay, this is the bottom side of the fan. Keep that in mind, okay, guys? It's the bottom side I'm working with that I have to modify. Now, I traced out the rough area that I'm going to have to, nibble away. That notched, like a little notch there. And it should fit down in there better. And flush this time. Same thing over here. So then I had to change the bit out on my Dremel. One of these little jobbies here. I don't know what you call it, but it'll work. Alright, they're all nibbled out. You gotta be careful. Don't take too much. But, it's like the size of a little smaller than my pinky. But you don't want to eat too much into this hole here. And then it kind of hollow, see? So just take enough to get that radiator to fit down in there the way it's supposed to. Try it out now. Okay, I'm not perfect. I've never done this before. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I was off looks like you do have to skirt around close, you know, breaking through the edge of this hole almost to get that thing to fit down where it's supposed to. I did the same thing over here. I kind of dug in. You can see this. Let me get a better angle here. Kind of had to dig in there to that edge of that hole here. And I went down about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little more, from the top down. That should be enough to, we'll see what happens. All right, that did the trick. Now, you can see how I hogged it out right there. You can see the radiator poking through the bottom there. You can see now it's sitting flush. Right in here, it's pretty flush. Whereas before I had a pretty good sized gap. It couldn't even get the bolts to go into the nuts there either. It was too long of a gap. But now when you tighten these, right? I'm sorry. When you tighten these in, remember this is plastic. This housing, it's very cheap. Okay, you know, keep in mind this is made in China. Okay, so just snug it up. Don't over torque these. They don't need to be over torqued. Just barely snug them up real good, and that's all you need to do. Now your fan is mounted to your aftermarket AutoZone radiator. Now I can install it. You know, I did notice there's quite a bit of a size difference on the thickness of the. Let me see here. You see how thick that I showed you a little earlier? This thing is way thicker than this this Toyota OEM radiator. Quite a bit. So I'm thinking this may actually cool better. So we'll see. Looks like we got another issue here. You see how the diameter of this port here? It's a lot smaller than the updated, or not updated, but the aftermarket from our AutoZone. So I don't know how I'm going to get this hose that's plumbed for this size diameter to go over this. Son of a bitch. So I don't know. Alright, so I'm going to use some Vaseline on the ports where I got to put the rubber back on, rubber hosing. It's just really tight and stiff, and this will help. Just use a little bit, and it'll help facilitate getting these rubber hoses on your ports. So I'm going to do that with the main radiator hoses as well. I'll just put a little bit, just a little bit on the inside there. It won't hurt nothing. And so everything goes back on the same way, just in reverse order. You might need an assistant to help you get the fan and radiator back down into the car, and you got to make sure that you hook the condenser back up to it, where it's kind of like attached to it. Okay, there you go. Good luck. I hope this is the last problem with this radiator, but this top plastic piece bolts into, it goes this way, okay, and it holds down the top of the radiator to the frame of your car, okay. And the problem is same thing as what I showed you before with the fan. On the bottom side, it has these, I don't know, I guess it's like a locator for the radiator, but like I said, it's not going to fit. You got to whittle all this down. Take those tabs all the way down. There's got 3 over here. Just take them all the way down. Otherwise, it's not going to go down far enough.